Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Where is the Line, where we explore the gray areas of life. I am Sabrina Fruhoff, and I'm joined by my co-host Jane. Jane, how is it going?
Hello. It is chaotic in my life. I feel like every episode I always start off with life is very chaotic. Sabrina, what about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I feel like your life and my life couldn't be more opposite. I have so much respect for you. Here I am. I just came out of a weekend of organizing a SantaCon. So for those of you listeners who are in the big cities, they probably are very familiar with SantaCon. I know Aria in Chicago, we have the T-Box, right? So
Mhm.
I took it upon myself to organize that in Minneapolis. And yeah, we had a really good turnout. 120 people came out to
Oh,
party.
wow.
And yeah, it was great. And we're trying to evolve it every year and next year charge some money for charity. So yeah, I'm still recovering today, but so
It
excited.
it looked like so much fun. I can't believe you're doing a grassroots effort here with the Santa
Very
Con.
grassroots. Yep, grassroots, bottoms up, very much word of mouth. But yeah, I am so delighted to be here today and introduce one of my favorite people in the universe. Aria Ramesh is with us. Aria, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Aria, one of my best friends when I moved to the US. So we're going on 12 years now. It's 12 years strong. We were in business school together. Shout out to DePaul. I saw Aria finish business school. I saw her navigate post business school, navigating through the business world, getting engaged, bachelorette parties, to her beautiful wedding with an amazing husband. Another shout out to Arpit. And most recently, also becoming a mom. So excited for her to share more about balancing all of that. So, Aria, you're doing it all. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a daughter, you're a sister. You're an amazing friend and you're a businesswoman. So I don't know how you do it, and just really honored for you to share your story. So before we get into any of the specifics, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. I'm Aria, and just for some background about me, my technical background is I'm actually an engineer. A lot of my background is in supply chain, and then yes, I went to business school with Sabrina. Um, my family owns a manufacturing facility, and we distribute kitchenware to many popular global brands. That's based out of India, and our offices are here in Chicago, where I'm based out of as well. Just the personal aspect is I have been married now almost going on 7 years next year. And my newest role was becoming a mom 2 years ago. So my daughter is 2 years now. And yeah, it's just a new journey.
Thank you so much for being here. We're really excited. And for today's conversation, we're talking a little bit more about finding the balance between being a mom and keeping your own identity, having your own life and hobbies. And we're so excited to have you share a little bit about your experience as a new, or maybe at this point, maybe even an experienced mom. Like have been a mom for a while now. So before we even get into some of the deeper questions that we have, looking back, what do you wish people had told you before becoming a mom?
This is a good question. I think that people give a lot of advice before you become a mom, but no one really tells you that you're really getting a brand new life.
Mm,
Uh, you kind of think a lot of people make it seem as though you have a baby and then your baby kind of just overlaps into the life that you have. And then that wasn't my experience at all. I feel like it's really a pre and then a post. I have a brand new life now,
mhm.
and a new life that takes getting used to, new relationships, new behaviors, new perspectives just on how life is and what I want out of it and what I want my daughter to get out of it. And so I think that just that can be a little bit polarizing when you're not prepared for it.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine. And so as I look at life, I think of it as like a pie chart, right? And there's different roles and different parts of this pie chart that you dedicate your energy to, right, Arya? So
Mhm.
you may have, I see your daughter, you have your husband, You have your social life, your friends, your family, and then even just your own self and work, right? If there's this new addition, obviously another part has to give. So I guess we'll get more into how you actually navigated it, but has that been your experience where something just has to give, and how did you come to terms with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Sabrina. You nailed it with the pie chart. I mean, I think for anyone, we all have kind of a pie chart of how we fill each of our buckets, how much time and energy we can give to each area in our life. Especially when I'm a first time mom. When you're thrown into this world, it's just completely different and you're very absorbed in it. This is also a role unlike any other because the stakes are so high, especially in infancy when that baby is so little. They're very just as they should be, they're very dependent on you.
Mhm.
And high stakes is, if you do something wrong or you're not paying attention or you're not completely present, something could go wrong. And so I think that it's natural to kind of just have everything else, some things drop a little bit because you physically cannot give your energy to all the same buckets that you used to give your energy into.
Mhm.
um, yeah, and I think that the more we can be transparent about that and, kind of lean on your friends and family to understand how big of a transition that you're going through, really, really helps that process.
Because I mean, for me, like when you and I still are really good friends, and I never like felt like neglected or anything. So I just were curious how you deprioritize that and or prioritize certain things over others.
I think it's ever changing. I think, your baby's constantly changing. And so the needs and how you juggle things are constantly changing. I can say though, the first few months, I felt like my life was just baby. I think everything else just
Mhm.
fell to the wayside. I think I had to prioritize my baby and then just work. And then I friendships are really important to me, so I was still prioritizing my friendships, but not in the same way. I mean, Sabrina, I don't know if you remember, but remember we would go to all day brunches and just talk about, our lives. I couldn't allot that amount of time. I could not be, doing a boozy brunch for the whole morning and then letting it take me to the night. So it was
Mhm.
just time restrictions and time management. And then also I think deprioritizing, if it doesn't serve me anymore, I just can't prioritize it. So that was a really big thing for me. Especially if I feel like it's going to be a bigger energy suck for me to go do something or, I think socializing is important. You can't only be in the monotony of being in the routine with your baby. You have to get out, you have to socialize, but there is a priority when it comes to who am I surrounding myself with? Are they going to fill my cup? Are those friendships still serving me? Is this event that I'm going to make me even more tired? What am I going to get out of it? I think that those are more of the things that kind of help you prioritize stuff or deprioritize stuff. And it also makes you reevaluate a lot of things around you. So if you
Mhm.
are finding certain situations or people just to be draining,
Mhm.
and to take away that energy from you, I think you just naturally also shed that from your life. And so I think that that's been kind of the silver lining of it, and not having as much of the time because you really want to give your time to the things that truly matter, and
Mhm.
the people and the things that, are there for you.
It's so interesting because I feel like it
Mhm.
just forces you to rethink the things that you're surrounded by or your experiences. So that's fascinating. It sounds like some of it was naturally happening and some were a little bit more intentional depending
Exactly.
on the
Yeah.
situation.
Mhm.
Um, one of the things I was thinking about heading into this conversation today is I have a couple like young moms in my life, girlfriends, and sometimes when I talk to them, they've shared that they feel like they've lost their identity and that their new identity as a mom, which I think you kind of mentioned earlier, right? There's a pre and post baby definition or like your life. Like, what's been your experience? Is this something you struggled with? Do you feel like early on you had this major shift in identity, and are you working on like bringing different things back into your life now that your baby is growing and maybe need a little less of you, or maybe you have a, different relationship with your baby? What's just been your experience with identity?
This is a great question. And from the moms that I have talked to and just articles I've read, I do think this is a big contention point almost for a lot of new
Mm,
moms.
Mm.
I think that the moment you have the baby, society really pushes this, well, you're a mom now, and
mm,
really puts that identity onto you. And that's okay. I think being a mom is a powerful title, and it's something I'm proud of, but it really does make you kind of question your identity. I know for myself, I didn't really feel like myself for a really long time. Right after you have a baby, your hormones are cutting in half. You're
mhm,
going through the physical changes, the mental changes. Your life is completely different. So I struggled with identity because I think for the first year, I just didn't feel like myself, and I couldn't figure out why that was.
mm,
Um, but then as time progressed, and I would, Jen, you were talking about, do you kind of add back the old stuff back in? When I would do some of the old stuff, I still felt like, oh, this isn't even as fulfilling anymore.
Mm.
wow.
Yeah, so I would do some of those things, and I would still have glimpses of myself. I'd be like, oh, okay, when I'm doing this, I feel really great. When I'm having my family time, when I'm meeting up with my sister, my girlfriends, all of that. But there were certain other things that I was just like, okay, you know what, this doesn't serve me as much anymore. And I think that's the kicker, is the moment you try to go back to your old self, you kind of just realize she doesn't exist anymore. Um,
Mm,
it's your new self now. You can't really go back to your old life because it's not there. So you have to
yeah.
figure out, who are you now, and what parts of your identity from the past do you want to hold on to? What are you proud of? What did you love about yourself, that you want to stick to? And then what are the new aspects of your life? What do you want to get out of your life now? It's a completely different stage. And what does that look like? And so I still think that just as humans, we're so multidimensional
Mhm,
that sometimes when you only label yourself as one thing, even though it might be something that's so important to you, being a mom is so important to me, I still kind of think it shortchanges you. And so
mm.
I realized a little bit later, like, I don't want that to be my only identity. And I think that's something that I kind of I'm proud of it. I'm proud of that role, but I also try to not identify myself solely based on that role.
It's interesting because I think what I'm hearing and from you and consistently from a lot of my girlfriends is like, yes, I do bring these components back into my life, but I am like a new person now participating in these new relationships or work or whatever it is. So, that's definitely something that I've consistently heard from different moms is yes, we intentionally try to bring these things, introduce it back into our lives to like find ourselves and find our identity beyond being a mom, but the experience feels a little bit different than before, it
Exactly.
sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like you work in your business and it's something that we know that you're very passionate about. I know a lot of moms, particularly working moms, feel like they're missing out on their children's lives because they're working. And I think nowadays, especially like in our communities, is very normal. Like it's normalized to have working moms, but I think that's been kind of a shift over time. And I think a lot of moms feel like they're just not doing enough, right? And they're missing out. Um, what's been your experience with that? Are there situations where like you're just in your head and you feel guilty as a mom and societal pressure, right? You mentioned, but then are there situations where that actually might be the case? Um, like what's been your observation or experience with that?
Yeah, another great question. I think I deal with mom guilt every day in some way or
Mm,
form, especially when I'm working from home. So my daughter, just some background, she does not go to daycare right now. So we kind of,
okay.
she kind of ping pongs between both grandparents are local. So when I work from home, my spouse's parents come and they watch her. And then when I go into work, my mom and dad, they live very close to where I go into the office. And so then they watch her then. So when I'm working from home, there's often times that she needs me. She just wants me to be the point person for stuff. She's coming up to me while I'm sending emails. And I do sometimes feel like, okay, why am I so distracted right now? Even though this is my job, I'll sometimes feel like, okay, no, maybe I should need to play with her. And then when I do need to be really strict with her, like, no, I need to get on this work call. I'll say it in a different way, the way she can understand. But when I shoo her away, I feel this guilt. And then I can find myself on my call having a split mind where I'm like also thinking of her and I'm also trying to present something. But when I first gave birth, I think after like 6 weeks, you're kind of just doing the same routine every day. It's Groundhog's Day every day. And I think by like the 6 week mark, I was itching to do something else. Like I just needed to do some work. I wanted to, and I expressed that to my dad. So again, family company. So I expressed that to my dad, and he was kind of like, okay, you know what, you can start back, but pick 2 small projects and ease your way back in. And that's what I did. And it was nice to have like a little bit of both. But the moment I started ramping up and getting fully back in, I really did have feelings of self-doubt there, where I was kind of like, can I do this? Is it worth being back at this capacity? And I really played around in my head with going part-time, or maybe even taking the first year off, because I did feel the guilt, and I also felt like this time is so fleeting. I don't want to miss anything. But also, since it's a family company, I also felt guilt with not being able to hold up my end with work and certain deliverables, because it defaults to a family member, right? Like if I can't do it, it's going to default to my sister, or my spouse works with me as well, so it would go to him. Worst case scenario, my dad. So all of those things, it's not a traditional situation, but it was my situation. And so I really struggled during that time.
Oh man, your situation is even harder because, yeah, to your point, if you're not executing certain things, you know that goes to somebody else that you care about and that they're going to have to
Exactly.
do this work.
Mhm.
Oh
Yes.
man.
Yeah.
Gosh, are there other like conflicting feelings? Because you talked about, like, it sounds like you felt guilty for both from your daughter's perspective and caretaking perspective as well as work. Were there other conflicting feelings that you had, like even have as a mom? Are there situations where maybe you felt like you have this immense love for your baby, but it's frustrating sometimes, it's tiring, it's exhausting, or do you feel like you are maybe missing out on other components of your life, or social, right, whatever it may be, or career, because you have to prioritize your child?
I think it can play out in other areas of your life, like in your relationship, you can be a little bit more snappy with one another, because you're not going to snap at your daughter. And so the conflicting feelings come then, where you almost feel like, should I just go out with my friends? Should I go, what are my other friends doing? How come they are doing all these other things with their baby? But I think in the end, you realize it's just a season that you're going through. She's not going to be having, God willing, she's not going to be having tantrums till she's 18, I hope. So I know it's just a phase, and it's just something that, we have to get through.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good perspective. And there's no recipe to do this, right? So you're doing your best, everyone's doing their best. And I've seen you in action, and it's really not easy. But I do want to talk a little bit about the support part, Aria. Obviously, well, I know you from, like, you always want to give 100%, right? You pour 100% into your whatever relationships, or even with your daughter. But that's not reality, right? We can't always give 100%. So in those days where you may not be able to give 100%, how do you lean on your partner? On your spouse? And yeah, what are some of these conversations like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, good point, Sabrina. So I think that in at least for the first year, I was kind of determined to do it all, or sometimes not even ask for help sometimes. As time went on, I realized that it's in my daughter's best interest when I'm very transparent about what I can handle. So the more transparent I am, I can make sure that she's better taken care of. So, for example, right now I'm going through a herniated disc in my back. And
Mm.
so it is hard to, she is super active. Like when anyone meets her, they're like, wow, she has so much energy. Um, so, just sometimes just chasing her and being active with her, by the end of the day, it can take a really bad toll just on my back. And so now I'll do a better job of being transparent of just, hey, I cannot take her to the park right now. I need someone else to tap in. When her grandparents are over, sometimes I'll have them do an activity with her if I know it's going to be hard for me to do it later. Um, when I know I have really busy work weeks, we'll plan something really fun for her on the weekend. And so then it kind of feels like, okay, I can't, I only have 40% to give today. Um, but I'm going to make up for it a little bit later. And then you don't, feel as much guilt. But I feel like as long as we allocate those things and we're transparent with each other, we can plan something else for her to do so she's not just idle on her own. And I think that really helps with not being able to give 100%, is to be able to ask the support system that you have in place. And I did see this quote that I actually really liked, and it said that if you only have 40% to give and you give that 40%, then that's 100%. And I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I'm glad you're getting more support, because otherwise that's not healthy. Yeah, so on that notion of self-care, how is that going for you? Do you recommend, like, do you have a routine self-care, or are you really just, when you're on your last straw and you're like really drained, like turning to that? Or like, first of all, what do you do, and what do you recommend to someone that is a new mom?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm working I'm working on this. I do think that sometimes it is when I'm kind of like at the end of my rope that I'll be like, I should do something, or I should leave the house, or I should plan something. But I do think that now, like if I look back on when I was single, or even just married with no kids, what I defined as self-care was, I think, like a little bit, I think I looked at it in more of a smaller bucket, but now I feel like it's a much broader bucket. And I would classify self-care as just even doing something nice for myself, or something really small that used to be routine for me previously. For example, just even walking and going and getting a cup of coffee. I have coffee at home, but I'll just
Mhm.
walk and get my coffee. I'll enjoy it there, and then walking back, or letting myself, uh, just watch a movie after my daughter goes to sleep, or just really small things that really add up to be big things, and being present while you're doing them. A lot, making yourself
Mm.
just be present. If you're getting a pedicure, just be present here. Don't, sometimes I'm guilty of, like, I'll keep texting my husband, and I'm like, how is she? What are you guys doing? What are you guys, did she eat? And he's just like, why? Just enjoy what you're doing. Don't be in our business. Just just go. You left for a reason. And I think that's important. And then another thing I realized was, have you guys heard that battery analogy about like how you charge? It's
No.
it's this analogy that basically says that we all have this, our energy is a battery. And when you deplete your battery, there's some people that like to be alone to recharge it. And then
Mm.
there's some people that like to go and be social. So you'll go to a party, you'll meet up with a bunch of friends, and that's how you recharge your battery. So
Mhm.
I've been always the type of person that I like to be alone. I like to just, even if it's just like I'll order food, or I'll have some nice wine and watch a movie by myself, that's how I recharge.
Mhm.
And I think I got into a habit where that was my self-care a lot. And it was my husband that was kind of like, you need to get out of this pattern. You need to get out there and meet up with your friends and talk to people. and be social. And then and that's when I realized, yeah, I need to know the difference. I need to know when my self-care is being alone and having that alone time and going to sleep early so I can, get some extra sleep in. And then there's other self-care, which is stepping out of that and not isolating and going and meeting my friends and recharging that way. And I think that's what's basically changed. What we have done is, my husband and I, we have, some couple friends that we've just kind of set up a cadence. They come every Thursday for football.
All right.
And they come to our house. So it's very low maintenance and it's been really nice.
Well, it sounds like you and your husband have a really supportive dynamic, right? And obviously I've seen it, but for the listeners, like how do you support each other? And oftentimes, right, I can imagine when you become a parent, the child is like the number one focal point, right? And some couples may or tend to neglect each other. How do you make sure that that doesn't happen, and that you continue to put each other first and sort of tend to the relationship?
Hmm. Yeah. So just to go back to the first question, which was what do you hope people told you before you had a baby? I would put this answer into it, is that your relationship will change in a big way. Right. There's just like such a change in the relationship. I mean, you're going through a big life event together, and then both of you are changing. So then the relationship as a result will definitely change. Um, but I don't think I was prepared for that either, of like, almost how much before, when you're, dating, or, when you're married and you don't have a kid yet, you are able to just kind of give all your energy when needed, right away. And now sometimes it's just not feasible. Um,
Mhm.
our daughter's at the age where she wants all of our attention. And so sometimes we have to wait to have the talks that we want to have, after she goes to sleep. And then sometimes when she's asleep, we're exhausted. And it's
Mhm.
just, it's sometimes we'll have to kind of just be like, did you still want to talk about that? And then the other person just is kind of like, you know what, let's just everyone wind down the way you want. We'll pick it up later.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think prioritizing each other, we kind of just we'll check in more often through the day and just see, what's important for each other that week, how we can support each other in letting that happen. But yeah, there's definitely a relationship shift. And I think we're always just working on communication. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's like I said, it's hard to communicate exactly how you're feeling when you don't know how to vocalize it. And then, a lot of the time, something someone told me is the things that you're feeling, the frustration you might be feeling towards your kids, it comes out on the other person, because you can't tell your kid they're frustrating you, or, it's because of you, I didn't sleep a lot and now I'm very irritable, and then I'm gonna bring it out in this other way, and I'm projecting it on in a completely different way.
Mhm.
So I think just communication. There's this topic that that I was reading is a big stressor in relationships, and then also just in relationships in general, and then also like post baby. And it's this whole idea of division of workload, division of
Mhm.
labor in a household.
Mhm.
And when we were not communicating, well, about like how much do you have in the tank right now,
Yeah.
there's it's easy to be resentful of, okay, well, I just did the bath, I did the bedtime, I did dinner, I did all this stuff, and you're kind of just, where are you, and you didn't tell me you're not feeling great today. And that has helped us, because now we know the moment we get back from work, I already know, okay, he's probably going to go lay down, or he's going to go run these errands, or whatever it is he needs to do. And then he knows, okay, Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going to be doing those things too. And
Right.
then we come together to pick up each other's slack.
Totally. I want to pivot a little bit. Earlier, you mentioned there's a lot of like pressure being a mom, whether it's societal pressure, family pressure, or even honestly, social media. I feel like a lot of moms have mom guilt because they're seeing other people's perfect mom life, online. So I completely understand that there's all these external pressure and judgment. And I think this happens a lot more to moms than dads. I feel like a lot of times dads do anything, everybody clap, and it's like the best thing out there. Mom do some things, even if it's like extra, people expect it to happen. So there's already this level of judgment happening, right? Um, what's been your experience with that? Like, how is dealing with that? What's been like the biggest pressure point for you when it comes to these external like judgments?
Mhm. You said so many good things, Jane. I'm just thinking which one to touch on first, but I did want to say this. I just saw this a couple days ago. You mentioned dads can do something and then everyone claps.
Yeah.
This one, I forgot who it was, but someone was saying you'll never hear people put the word working in front of dad. Right? So
Hmm.
you'll hear the term working moms all the time, but you'll never hear literally like working dad because it just
Yeah.
assume, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or there's just like different connotations, I think, with the mom and dad, and you're right, there's judgments that come with both. Um, yeah, but to your point, social media, I think definitely was where a lot of the pressure came from. And it also makes you sometimes wonder, like I think I said before, what am I doing wrong?
Mm.
Um, I know, so I know for my daughter, sometimes um she can be just really, she's so curious, but she sometimes cannot sit still. She wants to explore as much as she can. And I remember for me, just even the thought of a flight over 2 hours, I mean, it sounds like my nightmare. I wouldn't even dream to go on
Hmm.
anything, more than that. But then I would see a lot of moms just posting amazing vacation pictures
Hmm.
everywhere. And I felt really like, am I missing something? How are these people having these dream vacations? Why are you in Aruba right now? And, I'm in the winter here in Chicago. That was really tough. And then, I don't, so one thing right now is a lot of my friends, I don't have too many friends that have kids. So I would say it's kind of almost like a 70-30 split, meaning like only 30% of my friends have kids.
Hmm.
Um, and so being able to talk to people and kind of get the information to debunk a lot of the stuff you see on social media was tough. So for a while, I really did think like, okay, maybe there is something that, I'm not doing great. And I really put that pressure on myself and I felt that judgment. And I
Mm.
would almost when people would ask certain questions, I would almost answer to negate the judgment that I felt like I would maybe be getting.
Hmm.
So, for example, like sleep training is such a hot topic, and everyone wants their kid sleep trained and then like falling asleep on their own. It's perfect. And then they wake up and then you grab your baby and you start the day. And we tried to some extent, and we knew that it was not gonna work. She didn't like
Hmm.
it. She wanted to be with us. We were waking up more and losing more sleep to go manage her in the other room with the crib. And we co-slept. And for us, I co-slept with my parents too. And culturally, in Asian cultures, it's not really a big deal. But
Hmm.
here in America, it's almost a touchy subject. And
Hmm.
I also felt judgment even from our pediatrician. Um,
Wow.
yeah, like even she was just like, "Oh, really? By choice? Are you okay with this?" And she was prying like a lot for those answers. And I remember sometimes when I would bring it up, just with other groups of people, and I wouldn't know everyone. I felt that judgment. And so sometimes I would be like, yeah, no, we tried it, and I would give all
Yeah.
these answers beforehand, so I would feel like, okay, no one can judge me because they know I tried sleep training, it just didn't work. And so, but why should I have to do that? I can just say, I know, you know, she co-sleeps. I should be able to just say that.
Right.
But there is this judgment and there is this gray area of, okay, everyone's saying they're doing certain things in a uniform way. And if you're not doing it that way, maybe you're not doing things well or you're not
Mm.
doing things right. And so that's something I really had to push through. And now I'm very much more so like, I know my kid the best, and I know what's going to work for her, and I know that these things are going to be in stages, and
Mm.
I really hope that, she just won't be sleeping with me until she goes to college. So, and I'm confident she won't, and that's okay. I just know that this stage she is, and I enjoy the extra cuddles now, and I'm not
Yeah.
going to make myself feel guilty because I chose a different path than what is kind of outlined as the norm right here. And then the last thing I'll say is when I have the people that I have talked to that post the great pictures on social media, a
Mhm.
lot of the time they'll be like, that's the one good picture we got because it was an absolute chaotic trip. You
Yeah.
know, all this stuff happened and the plane ride was horrible and all these things happen. But you can, and I don't fault them. You can't put like essay post on every social media post to give people the clarity of what happened. So I think it's kind of just take things with a grain of salt sometimes and you'll have your day.
Like, to your point, this process or this thing is the solution for my kid, but like it doesn't apply for everybody. So like, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
some moms could be this, some moms could be that. It doesn't mean that one is right or better than the other. But what's shocking from your answer and your experience is doctors. I didn't actually anticipate, like, that is shocking to me. How did you like decide what's worth listening? Because like I would think that if I'm talking to friends, family judgment, like fine, they're a different, my mom, different generation, right? You guys did things differently. I'm gonna do this now. But with doctors, like, how do you decide, do I want to listen to like this professional, right? How did you figure that out?
Yeah, I've been kind of still navigating that space. But I think if it has to do with something that's more like health and safety related,
Okay.
sure, I'll listen to the doctor and maybe I'll
Mm.
even get a second opinion if I feel like, okay, maybe you're putting your personal experience on me. Um, but when it comes to something that I know tons of people do. I know like in other cultures is, for like the sleeping thing, I know that that is completely an accepted thing. And then they'll tell you what is safe. You shouldn't do it if they're an infant. You could roll over on them. But if you're out of
Mhm.
that category, then you make that decision for yourself.
Mhm.
Um, but this is an interesting space because you'll have the older generations, the generations that come before you, that may have advice or recommendations that may not always have completely doctor backing,
Mhm.
and then they just somehow work, like old school remedies, or this is what we do for teething, or, this is what we do for that. And again, I really think it comes down to, your baby best, what's going to
Mhm.
work for your family. If you really don't want to do something, um, that's something old school, like a remedy or whatever that is, something that's not traditional, you don't have to. The best way that my husband and I have navigated this is we'll listen and then we'll sometimes just say, oh, well, that's a great suggestion, but we'll consult our doctor first. Um,
Mm.
Yeah.
and then there's other times where we're like, okay, this sounds really harmless. We'll just do it. Like if it can't help, right? Like something with teething and whatever, sure, we'll
Mhm.
try it. This
Yeah.
can't be too bad to try out. But yeah, I think navigating that space can be a little bit difficult just because if you're a first time mom, you also are kind of, you don't know what to believe. But I
Mhm.
will say that we're in such a different one great thing is if you compare our parents' generation to the information we have now at our fingertips, you
Mhm.
can Google everything. You can look up a YouTube on how to do stuff. You can get other people's experience, especially if your child is dealing with something or a sickness that's, we have so much more information on now. So I think just take everything with a grain of salt, but fact check.
We're starting to kind of come to the end of the conversation today, but Aria, what's the biggest change that you've seen in yourself since becoming a mom? Like, are there things that you feel like you've shed? Are there new maybe skills, whether it's communication or even like having a thicker skin, dealing with all these, external pressure? What's been like a big change for you since becoming a mom?
Mhm. I think one big one is boundary setting. I just I wasn't great at it prior to having a kid. I think through my 20s, I was a bit of a people pleaser. I would just kind of, okay, yeah, sure. I don't want to like hurt their feelings. I'll make time for it. I'll figure out how to get it done. I'll do it. Now just not having the sleep and the energy and the time, I've just learned to really instill boundaries where I need it. Also when it comes to her, just with health and safety and how I want to raise her, I need to put up those boundaries because there are certain things that are really important to me, when it comes to her, and I want to uphold those things. And there's a lot of the time where people may not understand those things, and they're the people that are closest to you that,
Mhm.
you do let in. And so those can be the hardest boundaries to maintain because it's hard to have those conversations. And I think before I was very hesitant with confrontation, such as that. But
Yeah.
now I know it's in the best interest for my family to have those conversations. Um, I'll give you one example. So my daughter's a COVID baby.
Mm.
I was pregnant in December 2020. And then
Wow.
and then when she was born, there was no vaccine for infants.
Mhm.
There was no vaccine. I think I got even my vaccine like near the end of my
Mhm.
pregnancy. And I remember we would tell people, when she was under 6 months, can you just wear a mask if you're holding her? And some people wouldn't respect it. They would wear a mask and then all of a sudden their mask is gone, right?
Mm.
It's disappeared. And it was hard. It was hard for us to hold that line because, these are friends, this is family. And it put us in an uncomfortable situation as well. But at the end of the day, you will do anything for your child.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that gave me just so much courage and confidence in my convictions and what I wanted. And I think that's where I got the thicker skin to be able to make those decisions and speak up for myself. And your kid cannot advocate for themselves. You're their number
Mhm.
one advocate. And the moment that clicked for me, just all that shyness, all that, oh, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, it went out the window. Now I'm very clear about
Mhm.
what I need, what my kid needs, what's best for us. And I think that's been a big change for me. And then the last thing I think when you become a parent, your perspective on certain things just changes a little bit. You see the world differently, and sometimes I think it's double-sided, right? There's two sides to the coin. One thing is you can see it kind of scary because you're
Mhm.
so protective of your kids, so you can see the world a little bit more just dangerous, and you're more cautious about everything, and everything is almost like a perceived threat. Everywhere you go, you can kind of think of, oh god, this is tough, or navigating a big crowd is hard. But then you can also see just beauty in everything now, and sometimes I'm just so excited. I could have done something a million times in my life, but now knowing, oh, it'll be the first time my daughter gets to see something,
Yeah.
it's just different for you. It's so exciting. um it's amazing, and just to watch her experience everything, it really gives you just a different perspective of how you wanna live, what you want her to experience, the kind of mom I wanna be, and then there I can even see now just how observant she is of us and the people
Yeah.
around her, and
Mhm.
so a lot of the time I'm like, I don't, maybe this isn't a great quality that I should even put out there for her to mirror. So I'm very conscious of that, of like, who do I want to be and who should we be? Because she'll emulate that. And so I think that
Oh,
yeah.
oh, that is a very beautiful way to end it. Yeah, no, that really resonates, and we talk a lot about boundaries on this podcast, so I'm glad. And I noticed that in you, Arya, you're like a lot more assertive and confident in the way you deliver that. So, and maintaining boundaries is one of the hardest things in life, I think,
Mhm.
personally. But then if it's in the best interest of your child, so that's what's key. So
Mhm.
as we close, you've given our audience so many great tidbits and nuggets, but any other lasting advice you have for new parents that might be struggling to navigate this? Any other support groups that helped you that you want to call out as
Mhm.
we close here?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the pros of social media is just all that information consolidated for you. So for me, some great pages were taking care of babies. They give some great advice. Any mommy bloggers that really do show you both sides of the coin, not just the highlight reel. Find who resonates with you. Maybe they, have something in common with you that you want to follow, but follow them. And I think that that's you, even if you don't have a lot of mom friends, because that's something I'm working on. You can still find that commonality with other people in the social media realm. And when you see all those same exact things that you're dealing with, even on a funny reel or on an Instagram page, you feel seen, and that's great.
All right. Well, thank you, Aria. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for being so vulnerable and so open and sharing your experience. Before we let you go, let our audience know where they can find you and any other exciting projects you're working on that you want to plug.
Sure. Yeah. You can find me on Instagram, aram158. One interesting project that I'm working on is coupling robotics with food service. And so I think that's the new direction things are going. And I'm really excited about some of the new things that we're working on to marry the two.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a hot topic.
Mhm.
AI, robotics.
AI robotics.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you to our listeners. As always, we want to hear from you, from any new parents or expecting parents. What are some of your experiences in juggling this new life? Or if you have any other questions for us or comments, please leave us a message at whereisthelinepod@gmail.com. And as always, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We are on Apple, Spotify, and Google. And hope you have a great day. Thank you so much.